A recurrent nightmare that I had, which is that we'll do all the wonderful outreach work that everybody's getting down to. We'll enthuse the students about all the ways that mathematics comes into the world and all the rest of it, and they'll come and do degrees and they'll find that they're getting a very different idea of what's going on, and they will lose their enthusiasm. So if you're going to adjust what you're telling people about mathematics before university, then maybe you've got to adjust what you're telling people about mathematics at university as well. We worked across 4 universities, mixture of Russell Group, post-92s, one which was in the very interesting position of being a research-intensive university in a very poor area. And we ran a large-scale questionnaire with first-year mathematicians in their induction week, talking to them about expectations and aspirations and motivations and all those kinds of things. We then ran a longitudinal questionnaire where we tried to get some kind of idea of how people's impressions were changing as they moved through the course as well. The kinds of things that started emerging were not very much to do with mathematics, not mathematics per se. There weren't people saying there, I don't know why people teach us statistics or anything like that. They started, the students spontaneously started talking about what their attitudes were, what their aspirations were, what drives them, what gets them going, and that kind of thing. So we found we were dealing with human things, which was quite a lesson. I think it was 93% of them named getting a good job at the end as either their main thing that they wanted to achieve or one of the main things they wanted to achieve. Second, by a bit, was enjoyment. The fact that they enjoy it. Somewhere mentioned in there was the fact that, yes, I can do it. There were some people who named it as their least worst subject, so that's why they did it. So it's important to understand this, because if we're going to be able to support our students and make the course what they want, we've got to understand what it is that's bringing people into mathematics. We did find occasional passion. I've never dreamed of doing anything else apart from mathematics, you know, that kind of thing. That came across, and that was one of those kind of heartwarming moments. But students will not be as we were, and by we I mean mathematics academics. You know, the average student is not a mathematical academic in the making. So sometimes there was ambivalence. The message is getting through that if you do a mathematics degree, then you will earn a lot of money, provided you apply yourself to it there. So the message is getting through. And so they'd come out and say things like, oh, I'll get a good job at the end because it's maths, isn't it? But then you say, what kind of job do you think you're going to get? Well, I don't know. I don't know. You know, so the specifics about which jobs they end up with for first year, this is for first year undergraduates in their induction week. They haven't got a clear message, you know. When we asked them why they chose particular universities, reputation came into it, but reputation is a funny thing. It's certainly not based on NSS scores, National Student Survey scores, because those with the most buoyant reputations are not necessarily scoring the best in the National Student Survey. So I'm not going to harp on that, and the National Student Survey is a deeply flawed instrument anyway, unless of course you score 100%, in which case it's suddenly the best thing since sliced bread. Okay, reasons beyond our controls. Sheffield has a great nightlife and it's one of the safest cities in the UK. There's the selling message, you know, come here and do a degree. Which one do you want to do, sort of thing. Only 1 in 5 of those people that we questionnaire stated course-related reasons. That is, I wanted to come and do maths at Sheffield Hallam because I'd heard that it was a really good course, or because it uses a lot of computers, or whatever it is. They hadn't looked into that. People thought a maths degree is a maths degree is a maths degree. They don't realise that the benchmark allows this huge diversity between applied and pure, between using a lot of technology and using no technology whatsoever, which some courses do, and so on. Okay, student experience. It's extremely diverse. More students are positive than negative, but 1 in 5 first years are enjoying their mathematics less than they did at school. Now, to me, that's a pretty dangerous statistics. Maybe they've found something that they didn't expect there. That was an issue that came up. 1 in 4 feel less confident since they land on their degree. Now, you might say that's a natural kind of thing. I would say there's some kind of mismatch going on there. Don't know what it is yet. A fair number of the things that students raised when we gave them an open sheet and said, tell us what you're concerned about, was that the course is not their main concern. The course, I'm always finding it slightly disappointed that the course is only a very small part of what they're concerned about when they're at university. But some of them, you know, we found some of them talking about homesickness and first time I've ever had to do my own washing and stuff like this. And the point is that that is not just a transition issue. We found that that was recurrent, because in the first year they frequently live in halls. The second year they're getting out into the big bad sharkish world of landlords and all that kind of stuff. In the final year they're beginning to think, what do I do next? Although some of them, when we talk about aspirations later, some of them did say, well, I know I'll get a good job if I get a maths degree, but actually I came to do a maths degree to put off making a decision about what I was going to do with my life, you know. So let's have a look at the general education issues that they raised. They did find the large classes difficult. They found that the lecture style, the fact that they didn't feel able to ask questions in front of 200 other people, you know, that was a fairly major thing that came up. They do appreciate getting direct contact with the staff. They like their tutorials with their postgraduate tutors, which they frequently get, but they like the feeling that they can get access to staff. And if they don't get access to staff, they will punish you with their comments. The small classes were appreciated, but they were frequently with postgraduate tutors rather than with the staff. Lectures, sometimes the lectures were seen as great, but sometimes they were seen as, at best, impersonal. Some of them were viewed with complete disdain. He comes in, he gets out a piece of paper, he copies stuff from the paper onto the board, muttering while he does it. At the end he walks out, doesn't allow us to ask questions. Why do I bother going? I might as well get the piece of paper and just read it through, because I get nothing else from the lecture. You know, those kinds of comments. Like I said at the beginning, I don't want to seem as if I'm giving out the negative. That was the most negative that we got. There were some of them saying, so-and-so's lectures are wonderful. He does live mathematics in front of us. He makes mistakes. He does it in front of us and doesn't read it from a piece of paper. He talks about what he's doing, invites questions, you know. So there's kind of good practice in lectures, which is not universally followed. Staff identify lack of motivation, lack of interest amongst the students. I think the point that comes out here is that staff are hoping that the students are like them and are turned on by the same things as they are. And what we found is that they're not all of them at all. So you can try your best to be enthusiastic and you catch people up with your enthusiasm and so on, but sometimes they're not going to be as interested in it as you are. I think the main thing is what we must learn not to do is to judge students by what we are. That we're the weird ones, we're the minority, we're the ones who've become the mathematics lecturers, and so we're a bit odd. It's the students who are the majority, and we've got a duty to adjust to them, to respect what their aspirations are and to respect what motivates them. Right, what do the students experience mathematically? Many students on the maths degree perceive mathematics as difficult. Some of the staff see that as a good thing. It should be difficult. There is an alternative view of that, which is that if you've got a student who is well qualified and you say yes to them, you can come on our course, you will thrive on our course because you've got the following qualifications, come in and do it, you must expect those students to do well. They shouldn't find it, they find it challenging, but they mustn't find it as difficult as some of the students were saying they were finding it. So again, there's this difference of perception which is there. Staff identify shortcomings in the ability of the students on arrival, but the admissions tutors let them onto the course. What's the problem? It's the university's problem. We shouldn't be talking about bridging the gap. We're saying these students are qualified to come on the course. We should build the courses in a way which builds on the qualifications that we say we're accepting. And it's as simple as that. But we're not. We're still talking about bridging the gap. We're still talking about keeping... It's as if there's some kind of absolute place where university courses have to start. But you've got to deal with the world as it is. So there's an issue over the nature of mathematics. You come and do a maths degree, you're getting something very different from what you had at school. Doing A-levels, I would criticise A-levels for being algorithmic. Mathematics degrees force you to think in a different kind of way. Now this is where we start getting down to the essentials of what we saw. Students report that very little time is given to developing the skills that you need as a university mathematician. And this is the first time that we start mentioning the word skills. When we talk to people about what is essential about a mathematics degree, nobody came out and said, you must have the following content in it. The nicest quote that we have from one person was, well, maths is just a skills degree. And what you do is you develop your skills by studying content, but content is not the primary thing, it's the skills that you discover. So they have ways of doing things, I'm talking about ways of doing things, which they can only develop by dealing with mathematical type topics, but it doesn't matter which mathematical topics you deal with. You can develop it through dealing with highly pure mathematics, you can develop it by dealing with a highly applied course in differential equations or something like that. It's the habits of thought which are valued. What do students say about lectures and tutorials and assessment and so on? There is a strong commitment by most staff to teaching. Not many of them try and wriggle out of the teaching, and when they do it conscientiously, and they think hard about it. We found that broadly, right across the spectrum. The post-92s, the research intensives, all of them were there. There is a counterbalance, though, which is that you get limited resources for teaching. You only get a limited amount of time in your working week, and you don't get promoted by being a good teacher. You get promoted by being a good researcher. So there's this counter pressure all the time that if you want to advance in your job, then you've got to be developing a research profile rather than a teaching profile. It's not universally true, and the cracks are beginning to get there. So there are beginning to be structures whereby people can get promoted, but it's still broadly true. Now, I talk about solutions here. It's as if there's a huge problem, but there are always things that you can make better. In terms of student support, we found a whole load of different mechanisms. We can set up drop-in centres, we can set up tutorials, we can pay postgraduate students to run additional tutorials, we can run additional tutorials ourselves, we can have an open door policy. Many of us do have an open door policy. Come and bang it. If I'm there, I'll help you. The single most important bit of support that students stated, and this was almost unanimous right through the questionnaires and everything, was when you have a problem, where is the first place you go to? That was the question that we asked in some words or others, and the answer was always, I go to my friends. These support networks between students. And when we asked about it in the interviews, they said, we feel intimidated by the lecturers, so we like to try and make sure, there was a kind of atmosphere behind it of, we like to make sure we're not asking a stupid question. So what can we do? We can look for ways of facilitating the formation of these friendships. You can set up group activities in the first month, get people working together with a common purpose, look for the people who are not joining in and make sure they're joining in with these groups, maybe even give some marks for group work and this kind of thing. What emerged was that maths students are people, just like everybody else, really. It comes as something of a surprise because you tend to think they're shoe starers, you know, or whatever, but they're not. They're a pretty sociable bunch of people. They like to feel like part of a community. They like to feel that community going sort of up and down from them, you know. So there are second years and final years and postgraduates. The staff are in there as part of the community as well, maybe with a slightly different role. Okay, the peers give personal support. First years, when they have contact with higher level students, they get reassurance, because the final year students can say, I had your problems when I was in the first year, and look, I'm still here. The first year students can feel, therefore begin to believe that they're going to make it, instead of saying, oh, it's terrible, can't do it. The high level students begin to feel more confident, because as they explain things to the first years, they realise, oh, maybe I do understand this after all, you know. We did find, though, that on top of all that, if you want that real feeling of community, then you need a good relationship with the staff as well. And we find all sorts of benefits to doing that. If students are valued, they'll end up feeling valued. Alongside that valued, I would put if their aspirations are respected, recognised and respected, and they're not made to feel bad about that, then they'll feel generally part of things, and they'll be happier and they'll enjoy more and they'll work harder and they'll succeed and they'll leave with a positive memory, and they're more likely to forgive us our trespasses. And then if I'm being, okay, what would I get from that? The staff feel better about it, the students feel better about it, it's good for the mathematics ecosystem because they leave the course and they go back round and they tell other people, you want to do maths, it's a really good course, you know, and you get your better survey scores at the end, of course, which with this badly designed survey. So let's move on to this word diversity. Where did it come from? Students come from a wide range of starting points. You try to think of them as being evened out by your entry qualifications, you know, but if you ask for, I don't know, 350 points one of which must be at least a grade B in mathematics or something like that, you can still get a huge diversity of people coming to do your courses. So they come from a wide range of starting points. In terms of what they told us about what they wanted to end up with, they're aiming for a very wide range of finishing points as well. They want to be well paid, but what they want to end up doing by way of being well paid is a whole wide range of things. So you do need a wide range of courses. And the MSOR benchmark encourages that, recognises that, and encourages it by recognising it, that you have very practical, at one end you have what they call the practical courses, at the other end you have what they call the theoretical courses, and there's this whole variety of courses in between, and that's the strength. But we do want to encourage the students to choose the right course for them. We've had 3 or 4 students this year already who've come to us and said, we want to change course because we didn't realise that you use computers so much. And we've said, well, you know, we make no secret at all of the fact that we use a lot of computers. But, oh, I didn't know. I didn't notice that bit. Getting into thinking about what the courses are like, this was the bit that I was talking about earlier. What makes a maths graduate special? The answer that we came up with for this was that maths is a skills degree. There's a way of approaching things, a way of thinking, which is something that we don't teach. We think it's going to get across there by osmosis, I think. That they'll develop it as a matter of course simply by studying subjects, and it doesn't always work out that way. So there we are, it's what I said earlier on, it's developed through some mathematical content, but it's not to do with particular content. But when a bunch of mathematicians sit down and design a course, what they do is they design it around content. And the consequence, I would say to that, and I regard that we're currently looking at our own degree with a view to revalidating it. I ask the question, do we put too much content in? Can you develop the essential skills of being a mathematician, but do it with less content? And then you're not rushing around. There's time to work at problems. There's time to take a nice, relaxed, problem-based approach. Instead of saying, here's me telling you what to do, copy me, you know, there are different ways. And if you say, I haven't got time to fit that into the syllabus, well, drop something, take something out. One of the last bits in this section talking about curriculum is this whole issue of careers awareness and employability. Because primary student motivation, the one that they pretty much all agree with is, I'm doing this because I want a good job. If they're going to be paying $7,000 a year instead of $3,500 a year to do it, they're going to want an even better job at the end of it there. So it's a major motivator. Very few maths graduates end up using advanced mathematical ideas when they graduate. A lot of them will use lower level maths, a lot of them will use their analytical and problem solving skills that they should have developed as part of what they were doing, but they're often in competition with for jobs with non-mathematical students. So what do we do about that in our curriculum? One of the things that employers regularly say, we want people to have certain qualities. Communication skills, team working skills, leadership skills, you know, time management skills, all those kinds of things, which you can build into the curriculum without damaging other parts of the curriculum by saying, we still want you to learn the same stuff, but we want you to show us different aspects of yourself while you're doing that. We do get the reaction from some people saying, it's not our job to do that. Our job is to teach mathematics, and that's it. My answer to that is, you should respect your students. You're telling your students that you're going to get them to a place where they can get good jobs at the end of it. You should respect that, and you should therefore be aiming to develop in your courses the skills that will help those students to do that. So this is a big issue. In fact, I think it's one of the biggest issues. I'm not saying that the staff aren't doing a good job, but there can be if you think something is a priority and the students think something else is a priority, that's creating a kind of disjoint between you. Even if you don't express it explicitly, that is still there. It'll eat away and is something that needs to be recognised. What we're trying to do is to come across this idea that we have a sense of common purpose between students and staff. It's a partnership. Okay, there's a power relationship there because I've got the power to put a cross and to fail somebody. I recognise that, but I don't want to do that. My aspiration is the same as the student's aspiration. I want them to become good mathematicians. I want them to get good jobs at the end of it. This one was a quote from one course, one of the courses that we examined, and it brings tears to your eyes. I feel that tutors and students work as a team aiming for one goal, and that is the students' understanding and enjoyment of the subject. You know, my goodness, we didn't pay her either, so that was wonderful.